Hi everybody, I'm Alister Benn and you're watching Expressive Photography. Welcome back to the channel. This week I want to explore possibly the most underused yet most powerful aspect of Adobe Lightroom. It's something that nobody uses but has the most incredible power. So this week we're going to be diving deep into possibly the thing that's going to change your up and front processing faster than anything else that I can think of. Before we jump into that, just a couple of very short announcements. First of all, if you like expressive photography and you like the way that I talk about photography and would like to learn with me, but you also like Adam Gibbs and the way he talks about his photography, why don't you join us on the north coast of Spain? We have a couple of spots left for a workshop at the end of January, beginning of March 2023. It's going to be 10 days exploring one of the most remarkable coasts in the world with a small group of people, just 6 participants plus Adam and myself. Going to take you to some of the most amazing places on that coast, and of course in winter the possibility of wild wave action and big wild storms interacting with that beautiful coast are somewhat almost guaranteed, hopefully. Check the link at the bottom here in the details. It's going to be on a first come first served basis, so hopefully you're going to have to get in nice and quick for that. So thank you very much for checking that out. So back to the topic of today, which is processing. One of the things that new photographers struggle with is that concept of everything seems to be carved in stone. It's that sort of pressure of moving forward to create a final photograph. And sometimes we get ourselves backed into a corner and feel that it can be difficult to back away from that. And everything just feels very committing. And there's still this myth that processing is somehow, once you've made your decisions, that's it. And that's certainly not the case. The other problem that we find is if you use Adobe Photoshop all the time is you can end up with 20 or 30 layers easily with multiple adjustments or masks or various adjustments. And going back to a point in time where it was something that you liked and then you did a few things that you didn't like, it can be very difficult sometimes to go back and undo some of these adjustments. One of the features that Adobe Lightroom has, which isn't present in any of the other software, is the snapshot function. And what I want to do today is to dive into the Adobe Lightroom catalog of my Adobe Lightroom and use the snapshot, say this twice after 10 beers, use the snapshot function to show the different ways that we can use undoability or variations so that we can help us make choices, creative choices, aesthetic choices, expressive choices, to get to a point where we don't feel as if we're in such a risky environment, that we can have this flexibility to make various options or various versions of a photograph to see how we feel about them. If you watch the Expressive channel a lot, you will realize that I'm a big advocate of us being quite variable, that one day to the next, my preferences might change on just how I feel that day. One day I'll listen to one type of music, tomorrow I'll listen to another type of music, just because I'm not always constant. So this is the image that I have chosen to look at. It was just taken one morning on the west coast of Scotland. It's a very moody photograph. It's mildly underexposed, but these highlights were something I was a little worried about. And the snapshot function exists here on the left-hand side in the develop module. And it's an incredibly powerful thing. So let's start with a get the overall feel, and this is something I'm a huge advocate of, is not to start your processing with predictable, repeatable, repetitive steps. So it's not a case of I'm always going to start by neutralizing the white balance or creating a black point and a white point, for example. I don't necessarily always want all of those things to be done. Even things like lens corrections, I don't actually default to them. I want to choose whether I want the lens corrected or not. Chromatic aberration, I guess, yeah. But So if I reset the photograph, I don't want to start with repeatable, repetitive processing. I want to create something, and creation means spontaneity to a certain extent when it comes to photography. So I'm in a cold and melancholic mood. It's a Saturday and I'm recording YouTube videos. So I'm going to make this a little cool feeling. And I'm then going to grab a gradient, a linear gradient, and just pull up from the bottom and add some of that luminosity back into the bottom. I'm going to do that a couple of times. I want to anchor this photograph with a feeling of foreground. So I really want it to feel kind of close to me. So that's just a couple of simple adjustments. We've changed the temperature and we've made those. So I'm going to take a snapshot here and just call this cool start. And there we have typo after typo. So there we have what I would consider to be the cool start. Now, there's a couple of little bits up in here. This top right-hand corner has some very pale patches in it. And I'm wondering if a 16:9 version of this may be an attractive option. And I might actually remove the top of that peak on the left-hand side. So now I have a 16:9 version. And we know from previous videos and from previous discussions I've had on the channel, aspect ratios have a massive impact on the feel of a photograph. Here, the 16:9 is elongating the scene. It makes it feel more expansive. There's less space on the top and the bottom. And what that means is that center section becomes so much more important. So exploring aspect ratios can be a huge part of us finding our kind of emotional center, as it were, in the frame. So I'm going to make another snapshot. I'm just going to call it 16:9 because I want to see what that is going to look like. But we also know that 4:5, for example, can be a very cool aspect ratio. As Hans Strand famously said when asked, why do you shoot 4:5? It looks more expensive. 4:5 medium format looks great. So I'm going to crop this into a 4:5 and you can see the feel is completely different. It feels somewhat more austere. It feels a little just, as Hans would say, it just feels a little bit more expensive. So I want to make another snapshot here and call it 4:5. Now we have three versions of this frame, which we can skip between in the snapshot panel. We have the start, which is the full frame 3:2 original version. We have a 16:9 version, and we have a 4:5 version. And just skipping between those three versions, my gut reaction at this point in time is that I like the 4:5. I like the way it sits in the frame. The 16:9 feels a little compressed. And this is just my gut reaction. I haven't looked at this photograph before I started recording the video. This is just me reacting to the scene. So I'm going to come in now to the 4:5, and I do appreciate that this top bright corner may have to be done in Photoshop. That sort of advanced cloning is something that we can't do so well here in Adobe Lightroom. But what I can do is make some more linear adjustments. And I might just take the highlights out of that top bit of sky a little bit and drop the whites, but just up the shadows and up the blacks a little bit. And what that's going to do is just take away a little bit of that highlight bothering. So now I have that, I'm going to put in a radial gradient because I do believe I'm going to make this nice and small and invert it. The good thing about being able to make, so using the command or the control and the minus key, we can make the image smaller or larger, and it allows us to drag out that vignette so that it's really only going to influence the center, and we can move it around a little bit. And I am just going to drop the exposure a little bit on that outside. I just really feel I want to make this really intensely compacted. So I'm going to do that and just keep cooling that white balance. So now I have another snapshot. So I'm going to call this 4:5 vignette. Now, obviously, I don't have a 16:9 version with the vignette. So I've got to the stage where I now have the 4:5 version that doesn't have the vignette and a 4:5 version that does have the vignette. If I feel I've gone too heavily onto that, I can go back into my brush, click on the vignette, and reduce the amount of vignette. And I can make another snapshot that's just 4:5, less vignette. Typing and talking at the same time has never been one of my strengths. So I can now compare the 4:5 version with the heavy vignette against a 4:5 version with less vignette. The beauty of the snapshot function in Lightroom is these snapshots stay with the file. This is the raw file. It hasn't been exported to a TIFF yet. It hasn't been exported into Photoshop. No work has been done on it outside of Lightroom. And by holding on to those snapshots, I can come in here 2 years from now and click on these snapshots and perhaps go down a different avenue, a different route, a different way of processing. So I think of the two vignettes, I'm going to go with the heavier vignette. And I'm now going to come in and brush in a little bit of dehaze through the center section here, just to highlight a little bit of that haziness that's going on in there. And I'm just going to play around with that a little, and I'm going to warm it a tiny touch. The light was starting to come through from that right hand side and give a little bit of warmth in that center section. And I'm just trying to emphasize that a little bit, and that's from memory, and this was taken quite a few years ago. But you're starting to get the gist that I can now do 4:5 vignette, and I'll call it atmosphere or atmos. And the beauty of being able to do that is to be able to slip between the two snapshots and see the impact of those adjustments as we're going along. And it gives you a really good feel in terms of, is that too much? Is it not enough? Could I go more? Could I go less? Because what we're in here is a completely non-destructive environment. This is the raw file. We're not actually changing the data. We're just telling the computer or telling Lightroom that we've made these adjustments, but they're not carved in stone yet until we export the file. I think one of the things I've really pushed for in my processing over the last few years is that concept of being able to create a mood and a feel from your raw files reasonably quickly. And Lightroom's the perfect platform for that, because as soon as you convert into a TIFF, you do have some latitude, of course. We can still make quite bold adjustments, but not as much as we do in a raw file. And because we're not committing to them, we can undo them. Doing that in a TIFF, especially once that TIFF has been saved, even with multiple layers in Photoshop, undoing some things, especially if you start using snapshot functions where you're making a version of everything that goes underneath it. Once you've created a snapshot, going back and undoing anything that's underneath it is really difficult. Whereas here, if I want to go back to starting with a less vignette option, I can do that, go and start doing some adjustments that may seem appropriate at the time, but if I want to go back to that vignette with atmosphere, it's there waiting for me. The snapshot function in Adobe Lightroom is probably the most underused and undervalued facility that is currently available in Lightroom. Forget masks, forget all these fancy adjustments. Use the snapshot function and you will be able to feel the pressure being relieved the stress being released. You no longer are carving anything in stone. You can make the adjustments as you wish without that feeling that you're committing to them. You're in a no-risk environment, a completely zero-risk environment. Of course, once you've taken a photograph into Photoshop, and here we may want to remove that whiter or paler area at the top of the frame, once we import the TIFF back into Lightroom, we of course can use the snapshot function again to make any finishing adjustments that we may want to do at that point of the process. And of course the raw file, before it's been exported into Photoshop, still has the snapshots that we've made all the way through that process. I hope you find this useful. These are just little tips that I've learned over the years that I have found particularly useful to my own processing development and making the whole process of photography more enjoyable and more relaxed. I don't want to be stressed when I'm making photographs either in the field or in front of the computer. One final word before we finish off today, and of course please click on the link for the workshop with Adam and myself in northern Spain, but also the Out of Darkness pre-sale is still open. At some point, probably in about a month's time, we will be closing this pre-sale, and that means that free shipping will no longer be available. So if you want a copy of Out of Darkness and you live in the US, for example, or the UK or some of the European countries, we do have free shipping offer as part of the pre-sale, which could save you lots and lots and lots of money. So please, the Out of Darkness book is still available. I appreciate everyone who's bought their copy so far, but of course we are hoping that we can maybe sell a few more of these to help cover the costs of its production. Thanks for watching. I'll be along again in the middle of next week with the first of the videos that Adam Gibbs and I have done critiquing the photographs that you've submitted. If you want to submit a photograph that we may critique, obviously we're not going to be able to do all of the ones that are being submitted, but if you want to pop your image into the pot, there's a link at the bottom of this video as well with the email address that you can just email us one of your work photographs, and we may well choose that for future videos. But tune in on Wednesday for the first of the Adam Gibbs and Alister Benn image critique videos. And then of course I'll be along next weekend with some more of this type of content. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you're well wherever you are. I appreciate you watching the video. Please give me a thumbs up and a subscribe, and hit the bell notification. And that's it. That is a wrap, as we say. Bye for now.